It's so hard to go through the brain injury journey when you feel like you don't have support. And I never want anyone to feel that way, which is partly why I do this podcast. But chances are that if you're living with brain injury, you have at least at some point felt like you have struggled to find the right support. Today, we are going to be interviewing Patti Shutt, who's a NeuroCognitive Program Instructor at Success Rehabilitation. And she's going to be sharing about her 12 years of experience working directly with individuals who've sustained brain injury, to share encouragement when we go through our setbacks and the importance of support. I also have a big announcement and some exciting news to share today. So we are in for a great episode. Thank you so much for being here. There is always hope, and you are not alone. Hi, I'm Cristabelle Braden, and this is my brain injury podcast, Hope Survives. Here we share information, education, and support for the brain injury community. This is an uplifting podcast to bring hope to your darkest days. As a survivor of traumatic brain injury and multiple concussions, I know what it's like to struggle to find hope. I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I did, and that's why I started my online community called Hope After Head Injury. This podcast is an extension of that, and I'd love to invite you to join along as we explore the realities of life with brain injury, with messages of encouragement, interviews with doctors and professionals, and survivor stories. No matter where you're at on your journey, there is always hope. With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. A little faith, a little love. Hope survives. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Hope Survives podcast. Listen, before we get into anything, I just want you to know how honored and humbled I am that you choose to spend your time here with us. I hope that it is encouraging for you, that you have found some sort of support. I know in the intro we were talking about support, right? It's hard to feel supported through brain injury. It's hard to find the right care. It's hard to figure out what's going on when it's invisible. And, I can't look in the mirror and see my own vestibular system. You know what I'm saying? Like it's hard to unlock the puzzle of brain injury. And my hope is that this podcast helps you to just take the next step in your recovery, maybe helps you to be exposed to something you might not have thought of, encourages you, helps you to know you're not alone, gives you a resource or a treatment option that maybe you didn't know about before, and helps you on your journey. So that's kind of been my heart through it. I'm so excited for today's conversation, guys. Patti, well, I consider her a friend. She's just kind and so compassionate. And Patti Shutt has been working at Success Rehabilitation, and she is a NeuroCognitive Program Instructor. She's been working with people with brain injury for 12 years, which is just amazing. So she's going to be sharing a lot of encouragement. She's going to be sharing some of her experiences working with clients at Success Rehab, as well as some of the lessons that she's learned, some of the things that she has seen are challenges for survivors, and along the way, providing encouragement for all of us on our journeys. Partly is finding strength through setbacks, because we all experience setbacks. They are hard, and it's one of the things that we talk about in our conversation today. And it's something that I've experienced quite a lot. So if any of you listened to the episode I did a couple weeks ago about my brain injury anniversary, my brain injury was 17 years ago, and I've had a lot of setbacks in that time and re-injuries, most recently as this year, 2024. I got COVID in June, which turned into long COVID, which flared up all my underlying brain injury symptoms. It felt like I got another brain injury, really, the way that COVID attacked my nervous system. And so it has been just quite a journey. My heart is that I don't want anyone to ever feel alone. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're misunderstood, that they're not seen. And so that's kind of been what we've been doing here through Hope After Head Injuries support groups and this podcast, which I also started 12 years ago. So Patti and I have that in common, that it's been 12 years that we've been doing this. But I just know that the depths of pain that brain injury survivors and families go through, it can't be understated. It's so hard to explain the nuances of living with brain injury. I'm sure you know that, because if you're listening to this, you probably have a direct connection to brain injury in some way. So my prayer and hope has been that this podcast is encouraging. We also have our Zoom groups. I've mentioned them probably almost every episode, that we meet on Zoom for Zoom support group. We meet on Zoom for our brain injury Bible study, which is like a faith support group. And something I'm very excited to announce and share is that we will be expanding our support programs and resources in 2025. New time zones, which is very, very highly requested because we have people all over the world, which is also humbling that this little page that I started called Hope After Head Injury would now expand into this really global movement community. And so what we're doing is we're putting some more infrastructure underneath the support and the programs that we're already offering to expand and provide more. As of 2025, Hope Survives will be incorporated as a nonprofit organization. I have a team, guys. I've been doing so much of this by myself for so long. We have an amazing team behind us. Our board of directors is incredible. I'm looking forward to introducing you to more of them. But guess what? Patti is on the board of directors. And it's crazy because I did this interview with her a little while back, and it just happened to be the one that happened to be on the list for this week. And the only reason that happened is because I got behind on the podcast in November. So this episode would have come out last month had I not fallen behind. So it's kind of like, maybe sometimes there's a purpose in setbacks that we wouldn't have seen. So Patti is on the board of directors for Hope Survives, along with my mom, if some of you know her, Cindy Braden. And we also have Tamika Wolf, whose husband has a brain injury, Tanya Nagel, whose husband has a brain injury, and Dr. Michelle Eisenman, who is a functional neurology doctor. She also was interviewed on this podcast back in season 2. I can't wait to have her back on. She's also rounding out our founding board of directors. And so I can't wait to share more about what we're doing with Hope Survives. As of right now, we are just in the startup process. This holiday season, we have launched a holiday fundraiser. So there are 2 ways you could help. Number 1, I have linked in the show notes a Google form where you can share a testimony of how Hope Survives podcast or any of the Zoom groups have encouraged or helped you. And we are trying to compile testimonies of people who have been encouraged or helped by our podcast or helped by the support group so that we can put them on the website for the nonprofit. So if you feel led to share your experience or a little bit of your story with me and with our board, we would absolutely love to hear how the podcast has impacted you. It's a very short form, and that's also a way we could get connected with you if you're interested in volunteering or joining what we're doing. We're going to have a lot of virtual volunteer opportunities starting in the new year. So if you fill out the Google form, we will be able to connect with you that way. And then the second way is to share our fundraiser. I just announced it a couple of days ago, and we've already hit 20% of our goal, which is so humbling just from one email and social media post. So I'm so grateful. I just can't express enough how grateful I am for our support community. And this is a need. We are hoping and praying. I'm going to share more in the future. I don't want to do it all today, but I did want to let you know that we do have a holiday startup fundraiser. And I have to thank my friend Kevin McDonald, who was just here in season 4 here, season 3. I can't remember what season I'm in. A couple episodes back, Kevin McDonald was interviewed with his story. And he is the founder of Restart, which is a brain injury organization. And his nonprofit is sponsoring our startup. So the donations are all tax deductible. They will be processed through Kevin's nonprofit, which will then be gifted to ours. 90% will go to us, 10% will go to him. And we've partnered on this. So if you are interested in supporting the next chapter of Hope Survives, the podcast, the support groups, guys, I am just, it makes me cry. Like, I have been so emotional, just so grateful for having all of you on this journey. And I'm so excited to be able to share that we are taking the next step to provide even more help, even more tangible programs. I've always felt guilty that I couldn't do more. And now we have a team to do more. So I can't wait to share more about that. So I think those are the announcements I had to make today. Number one, the Google form that you could fill out a testimonial if this podcast has encouraged you. Number two, the fundraisers. So I will link both of those in the description. And now we're going to go on to Patti's interview. So you'll get to meet her and hear some of her experience working with brain injury. And I hope this episode is encouraging to you. I started this out talking about at the very beginning of the podcast that it's not always easy to find support. I will tell you, Patti is an example of an amazing person who works with individuals with brain injury. There is hope to find the right treatment and the right care, and people that really do care and work in brain injury because they love helping survivors. These people exist. I try to get as many as I can on the podcast. But I hope that listening to her talk about her passion for working with brain injury survivors is encouraging. And I hope that the encouragement that she shares from her experience of working with survivors is encouraging to you as well. So thank you so much for being here. And without further ado, let's get into the interview with Patti. Today, I'm here with Patti Shutt, and she is a friend of mine that I met through Success Rehabilitation. So I've been doing my brain injury Bible study program at Success Rehab for, gosh, it's got to be 3 years now.
I think so, yeah.
And so Patti works at Success. She's been working with people with brain injury for 12 years. And she is just one of the kindest people that I know. And so I asked her to come on the podcast because I love to have conversation with survivors, but I also love to have conversations with those who work with people with brain injury. And so Patti has a very unique perspective with what she does at Success Rehab. So Patti, can you introduce yourself, some of your background, and what you do at Success?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Patti. I started working at Success 12 years ago. It'll be 13 years in July. At that point, I didn't have much experience when it came to brain injury. My background, I was working with those who are elderly in the ID field and things like that. So it was something because I can even tell, like, throughout my first week, I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. The things in the past, I had great experiences, don't get me wrong, but it's just the field of brain injury itself. It's kind of like my niche. And throughout my time at Success, I started out as a direct support professional. After that, I became what we now call an RPC, which it basically, we manage different offsites within the community. And then about 8 going on 9 years ago is when I finally got to step my foot into the neurocognitive programming in our clinical team. And it's just been an amazing ride the entire way. Not only is this the, one job that I've spent actually the longest amount of time at, but it's one of those jobs that not only do I get the pleasure of helping individuals learn and grow and get stronger, but I in turn have learned from them and continue to learn every day with the things that I see and experience. So it's a really beautiful circle all around.
I love that. One of the things that's always stuck out to me is your rapport with the clients at Success. So you call the survivors that are there, you call them the clients at Success. And can you share what Success Rehab is and what you guys do for those who might not be familiar?
Oh, of course. Yeah. We are a post-acute rehab. So basically, after someone who has sustained their injury, maybe has spent time in the hospital, maybe they've gone home, maybe they've gone to a different sort of program. We provide a whole bunch of different services. We have clients that we have inpatient and outpatient. So I'm going to start with the outpatient just because that's a little bit shorter than our inpatient. Our outpatient clients, some still live with family members, some still live with husbands, wives, whatever it might be, and they come and receive different services from us. So whether it's occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, cognitive rehab therapy, day program or neurocognitive programming, they are offered that throughout the day. Our in-house clients they live within the community. Some live within our main building, and they come to programming Monday through Friday, which the outpatients do as well. But during their time, they also receive occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, all the therapies that really help an individual become stronger after they sustain an injury. On top of that, we also offer a Saturday program. So the community integration is totally huge after an injury because, a lot of times what I hear from the clients and different experiences, individuals feel alone. They feel like they don't have somebody they can relate to. So being with a group that, understands each other and then reintegrating back into the community, it can sometimes help with individuals' anxieties and things like that. But we offer a very well-rounded, like you had said, Bible study that we're so thankful that you do. The clients love it and look forward to it. We, as staff, look forward to it as well. We also have vocational programs. We have an equestrian program. We have what's called CCRT, which is the Community Cognitive Rehab Therapy. Just trying to think. I feel like if I miss something, there's just the
Well, there's
point
a
is there's
lot that
so
you
much.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's so you have a day program, and like you said, you have people that are outpatient that come in, but then what I love is you have the homes. And
yeah.
so the homes provide like the different survivors there. They have roommates and they have people that live in the house with them that are also survivors, but they're staffed so that they have the extra support that they need and they can connect with each other. In the Bible study, I'll be like, oh, I live in the house with him or whatever, like they have,
Yep.
uh, friendship that they develop with each other.
They do. And, going from or being in a position where, starting out as that direct support, you get to bounce around. Sometimes you're in the main building, sometimes you're at an offsite location. And when I became the official RPC for one of our offsite residents, it really gives you that different sort of perspective. I was lucky that I got to work. Realistically, I worked all three shifts at one point, not the same day, because that's just bananas, but like 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7. And just to be able to see the individuals in an element that is is closer to like a home-like setting, decorating for holidays, making meals for each other, just supporting each other when it comes to maybe it's laundry, maybe it's cleaning a bathroom, this, that, the other thing. I think sometimes individuals, it's a hard thing, like I said, after you sustain the injury, no matter what stage of life you're in, right? And not only are you trying to work on yourself, but then you're with other individuals who are trying to work on themselves too. So it really is a like give and take of like growth and trying to feel it out. Because the other thing that I do like to remind, the folks of here is I come from like a sports background. I played, sports growing up and thankfully things like that. But here at Success, whether it's the day program, whether you're in a building or at the house, it's like our practice field, our practice sport. We get to do things that, if we make a mistake, well, first of all, we're all going to make a mistake. It's inevitable, right? But when you make a mistake and like like you said, we have the staff there, it's almost like that security blanket, that background that's like, okay, you know what? Maybe it burnt the burgers this time, but guess what? This is what we're going to do. This is why you always have a backup meal, because mistakes happen. Sometimes, you get distracted. Maybe you get a phone call. Maybe, a child starts crying. The possibilities are endless, but to help someone realize it's okay, even if you didn't have an injury and you're just, every day, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to make a mistake. You're going to have to problem solve. It just sometimes it's a little bit harder after you sustain that injury.
Mm-hmm. And many of the clients that are living there, they've sustained more like severe brain injuries where they need a lot of support. I was with in Harrisburg with Stephanie Bauman, who works at Success as well. I don't know what's her title. Do you know offhand?
Oh, she is
She,
totally going to get me for
yeah.
this one.
Oh,
Director
I'm
of,
sorry.
oh,
She does
oh my,
admissions and she does
she doesn't,
vocational, right? The
maybe she's
vocational.
director of admissions. I want to say she's director
Okay.
of
Yeah.
admissions. She supervises the vocational
Okay.
department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that she said I'm sorry, Stephanie, if you hear this, sorry about
Okay.
that. Um,
I know.
one
I
of the
love you, Steph. I'm
things that
sorry.
one of the things that she said that really stuck out to me was she loves getting people out of nursing homes that are only in their 30s and 40s, right? So many
Yeah.
people after brain injury, they don't have anywhere to go, especially if it's more severe and they need that care. But their family, or they don't have family, or their family cannot provide that for them. And so a lot of them end up in like nursing homes that are meant for people at end of life, when the client, like the people who've had brain injuries, they're vibrant in the middle of their life, and they don't need to just sit around and, what she said was, play bingo or sit outside. They're like, no, they need more than that, right? So she says
Yeah.
she just loves, like, in the admissions process, being like, wow, we got another one out of a nursing home, and then they get to go into this community living situation where they're being integrated in with other people who've had traumatic brain injuries, and with a staff that's understanding, with activities and things like that. So for those listening, that's kind of where Patti works, right? That's the environment. And it's called Success
Yeah.
Rehabilitation. And I love that because it's about helping them to find success after their injuries. So
Exactly.
when you've been working with the clients with brain injuries, what I mentioned earlier, one of the things I've noticed is you have such a great rapport with so many of them. They seem to really love and trust you, and I think
Yeah.
that's just so beautiful. And so what have you learned working with people with brain injury? What are some like common threads that you've seen through the survivors?
Well, thank you. First of all, it's honestly very important for me. No matter if I'm assisting someone in a bathroom, if I'm assisting somebody in day program, like I make it a safe environment, a welcoming environment. I mean, we all know the world. There's so much going on in the world right now. So even outside of the walls of Success, it's like I at least have control within those walls to give someone an ability to, maybe it's a shoulder to cry on. Yesterday I had a client come up to me. Unfortunately, she just had like a really sad loss in her life. And she just looked at me. She's like, can I please just have one of your hugs? I'm like, yes, come here. Like, I got you. You know what I mean? And the one common thread, there's a couple. So I'll try to focus on just, uh, every individual is still a person. Every individual wears pants. We wake up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we get ready for the day. And yeah, you may have sustained an injury. And again, I would never downplay anybody's injury. I'm not saying it like that. It's the reminder of, at the end of the day, we treat people with respect. We treat people the way we want to be, treated. Um, I personally, when I work with someone, I imagine that it's a family member. I imagine that it's someone that, if I weren't that person taking care of them, like if it was my own family member, how would I want my family member to be treated? And then on top of it, the other really nice thing here with inpatient and outpatient is you get to build that rapport with family members too. So like, for example, if an outpatient's being dropped off by their parents, hey, how you doing today? Like having that conversation, I'm going to take care of her. You go out, you don't worry about it because, she's here with us, because it's, for those that maybe are taking care of others and it's a responsibility. You love doing it. I'm not saying that you're, complaining in any sort of which way, but to have that little bit of a break where, your loved ones being taken care of in a way that is genuine, I think that gives people a lot of comfort. The other common thread that I see is individuals wanting to learn to grow or wanting to learn something, new. Because one thing, how do I want to word this in a sense? We talk about like the rebirth of an individual at times here at Success, because after you sustain an injury, I know a lot of the goals, like a lot of times people think, I just want to get back to that. And it's a common thread, and I get it. Trust me, if I were in that position, I probably would feel the same way. But it's getting others to realize, hey, you know what? This new version of you, it is awesome. in itself. Like you're here for a reason. Like you may be going through this. You may not understand why you're going through it. You may not, it's a very, very hard time in your life, but you're here for a reason. Let's celebrate the you that we have. There's a plan out there that's bigger than yourself. Trust those that are looking at you and saying, you're doing a great job today. I had a client one time tell me because they did a transfer and I looked at them and I was like, that was awesome. Like, good work. And they're like, why are you? I'm like, but why not though? Like, having somebody in your corner, hey, you vacuum, great job vacuuming today. You're doing this, like to have that little bit of encouragement, I think can help anybody. So, like I was saying, the common threads, people are people, treat them with respect, learning to accept your new self. And that's something like, to be honest, Cristabelle, if we think about it, like injury or not, we all go through phases of that. We all go through phases of when we like ourselves, we don't like ourselves, when X, Y, and Z, so sometimes it's also remembering that human approach too. There's a lot of things that get compacted after the injury, but also at the end of the day, like, one example, this is a good one. So I was in group the other day, right? And we were talking about individuals that have to use walkers, canes, wheelchairs, like whatever it is, right? And I sat with the clients and I was like, so I have a question for you. You know, outside of your injury, like let's come up in a ball. We're gonna throw it on 309 right now. Like we're just adults hanging out, right? Like when you see yourself getting older, how did you see yourself aging? Right? And they look at me and they're like, oh, like I'd probably have a cane, maybe a jazzy, maybe something, you know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, it's a natural progression. Like, eventually if you get older, you're going to have to use this and this, right? Yeah. Okay. So my question is, are we upset that we have to use the device, or are we upset that we were forced to use it sooner than we wanted to? And to see the look on their faces where it's like, wow, I'm like, yeah, guys, there's no shame in using a walker. There's no shame in using a cane. There's no shame in using a wheelchair because it gives you that platform to still maneuver in the way that's suitable for you. You know what I mean? And not that I'm comparing anything, again, everybody's journey is different, but about, I think it was 3 years ago, I had to get a total knee replacement. Again, playing sports, just, everything else. I had to use a walker for almost 2 months, and again, 2 months compared to anybody. I'm not here to compare, but having to personally have that moment where you swallow a pill and you're just like, I need to use this and that's okay. Like, this is part of who I am right now and it's going to help me get stronger. It's going to help me get to that next. I hope that answers your questions. I feel like I rambled a
Yeah.
little bit.
No, it was great. I love
Yeah.
that example with the walker or the cane, and to say it's okay to use these things. And I love how you said this is what will help you successfully maneuver the way that you want to, right? So it can be hard to realize your limits and realize the things we have to do. On the podcast, we talk a lot about needing to rest, having to say no to activities, not being able to do everything you want to do, not being able to have a social life the way you used to, people feeling very isolated and alone, not being able to work or cook or do the things that we want to be able to do. But to realize that knowing our limits, that's how we start to progress slowly. If we try to do all those things at once with a brain injury, we're going to crash and burn. But if we say,
Yes.
today I'm going to cook, maybe tomorrow I'm going to spend time with a friend, maybe and we're able to do things in a way that isn't too overwhelming at once. But it's hard to realize your limits, and also the piece of acceptance. What have you seen in the individuals with brain injury that you've worked with on trying to learn how to accept your injury, but also not give up on improving and continuing to hope for more?
Yeah. This is a good one. We actually, we had a conversation similar to that yesterday. And when it comes to acceptance, one thing that I talk with the folks about is you don't have to like it. When it comes to accepting something, it could be good. It can be something you don't want. But if we can accept the fact that, hey, for today, I'm going to cook this meal. And after I cook this meal, I might need to take a nap or I might need to sit down for an hour. That's okay. You're at a family function and family functions, everybody gets overstimulated. That's just something across the board. Being able to be comfortable enough in yourself to say to a family member, I'm going to go take a 15-minute break outside so you can recenter yourself. Implementing a pause, saying no. These are all things that us as humans, we're able to do. We have the ability. Now, saying no, I mean, it's a fine line because sometimes, especially after your injury, you have to relearn how to do something, right? So here, let's start here for a second, because this is one of my favorite examples that I like to remind our clients of. So when we were children, right? And even like Cristabelle, even if you and I, like, do you know what I mean? Like when you were younger, you were learning to walk, right? I met your mom. She's a sweet lady. I absolutely love her. She taught me how to spell your name correctly. I will always remember that. But when you fell when you were walking, I guarantee she didn't yell at you. I guarantee she picked you back up. Hey, sweetheart, you got this. Let's go. And anybody that is listening that is a parent or just can relate to being like that little child, right? Now, as an adult, some of us do lose that ability to walk, and some of us have to work to regain it back. And the one thing I see is individuals being so hard on themselves. So I remind them, hey, just when you were younger, you had to learn something. There's no shame as an adult having to relearn. You need to be kind to yourself because unfortunately we are older. So it's not going to be the same thing when we were younger. But in the next breath, give yourself credit because you're trying. Give yourself credit because you're still doing. You have that fire inside that says, I need to keep going. There are some days I will thank the clients for simply coming to program because I'm sure they didn't want to that morning. And that's okay. Like as a human, like I accept that I'm not, my angelic voice might not be the voice you want to hear that day, but here we are. Right. But in the next breath, like accepting that it's okay to ask for help, accepting that it's okay to receive that help, accepting the fact that you deserve to be cared for, you deserve to be, all of those things. I think that acceptance can be so hard for some. And whether it's because maybe you've had a rough past, maybe you don't trust individuals, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different reasons that I've heard over the years. But I feel like you hit the nail on the head, though. Once you accept the fact that maybe you're not strong enough to do this yet, let's pick that apart and let's find how to make it stronger so you can succeed. Because just like a math problem, realistically, if I said, Cristabelle, can you give me an addition equation to get to the number 5? Like, can you provide one for me right now?
Like 2 plus 3?
Perfect, right? But I can look and be like, hey, Cristabelle, I want to get there with 1 plus 4. And then some random person's going to be like, hey, don't forget 0 plus 5. And then there's always that one person that's like, no, 9 minus 4. You know what I mean? Like you can come at it any which way and still get to your final result. It's just sometimes because like we learned to do something that way originally, we don't like change as humans. So having to do that and accept the fact of I need to do it like this, it can be hard, but also like there's so much reward to that. There's an individual that I remember that came to our program. He was very quiet. He was very down on himself. He just, there was no buy-in to him actually still being just around, you know? And we had a conversation the other day and he literally was like, I am a good person. I do make people laugh. Like I actually can do these things. And to see the turnaround in him just as a person, like once we can accept the fact of, okay, I don't like this, I don't want this, but here I am. I want to improve. I want to get stronger. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. And I know it may seem like the dimmest light you've ever had in your life, but it's still there. Even if it's the faintest little thing. I mean, if we think about it, it only takes the size of a mustard seed. That, you know what I mean, when it comes to faith and things like that. So even if you can have the slightest bit, that in turn can turn into something else in the future, because I've had moments where like my first group I ever ran at Success, I was still in school, group facilitation program. It was wonderful. But I had a individual who told me that, doctors told her she'd never walk again, never walk again. She'd be, this is how her life would be, everything else. That woman walks through our halls proudly with her cane. It's these, I understand why doctors say what they have to say and like, I get it. I'm not negating it at all. I just want to remind individuals that like the brain is such a powerful tool. You work hard, you practice, you keep doing those little things day after day after day. those pathways can technically be formed and do something. And again, it's not in the original way that she was walking, but heck, to be walking in any sort of way when you're told that you're not going to, that's like that's still mind blowing. Like, it gives me goosebumps today to think. And there's many other individuals who were told that I'd never be able to talk again, I'd never be able to walk, I'd never be able to do this. We have an individual who sadly he was hit by a train. He's hit by a train, and he's able to walk through these halls, engage in conversations, and just it's again mind blowing. I think that's part of the reason why I come back every day, other than like the fact I love my job. These clients are such a motivation in itself, you know?
Mhm. And not giving up, right? Like that we don't give up even if we have to do it differently. I love your example of the addition, that there's a lot of different
Thank you.
ways to get to the number 5. And yeah, if we're just so stuck on, this one way is the only way that I've ever done and the only way that I see other people doing it,
Mhm.
you kind of lose the creativity of realizing that just because you have to do something different, that doesn't make it better or worse. Different is just different,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, what are some other stories that you've seen with different? I mean, you've been working with people with brain injury for 12 years, so you probably have a lot. But are there any that stick out to you of people that persevered and you saw them with hope go beyond what doctors ever thought they would?
Okay, so let me see here, because I feel I just had like a Rolodex of like all the
There's
individuals
so
throughout the
many.
years. Oh my gosh, it's but you know what though? It's like it's such a
It's
beautiful so
good.
many that I wouldn't like,
Yeah.
you know
Well,
what I
that's so
mean?
good. Yeah. Well, so many.
So
Okay. Let's just,
sorry.
before you share these stories, I just want to say
Yeah.
to our listeners, a lot of you with brain injuries have been told you'll never do XYZ again. So
Yeah.
what would you say to those who've been told that before you go into these stories?
So the first thing that I would say to those individuals, don't give up. Even if they're telling you that this and this, do not give up, because the one thing that I know doctors will also turn around and say is there's still so much more of the brain that we don't know yet. So as hard as it is, and again, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, well, don't feel anything because they said that. No, take your moment. Take that moment, because if you don't, it can come back up at another time, and you should never suppress feelings like that. I'm a firm believer. But after that moment, after you rest for a minute, brush your shoulders off, and you keep going forward, because none of us really know. And that's one thing I wish I had a crystal ball to say, okay, you are going to be leaving your facility this day, this time, and everything else. I don't, but I do have the ability to be that cheerleader to say, just keep going, because none of us know. One day you can come in here and you know what I mean? So my stories, they kind of range, right? So like if I go back to my time when I was working at the house, I had at least, I say at least 2 to 3 individuals who graduated our program and went on and just thrived. There's one individual I know that I'm almost positive they're engaged. I can safely say that, but he met someone, they have a house, he has a job, they have a child, everything is, another individual who, again, she left our program after. And when I say left our program, there are some folks that might leave after 3 years. I know individuals that have left after 10 years. I know individuals that have left after 6 months. Each journey, each brain injury is different. There's similarities, but no two are alike. So to have individuals who can really, I mean, the first person I talked about, he had physical limitations. He had to relearn how to walk. He actually had to get a special lift put in his shoe, because after his surgery, I forget the distance between the legs, but like one leg was longer than the other. So he had to like get special shoes to help to make sure that he would, walk smoothly, because this whole thing between hips and knees and all this other stuff. The female that I had mentioned, she had been with us, I would say, for almost 10 years before she was, finally strong enough, secure enough, everything else. And, she went out, got a job, thriving in life. We have other individuals who they've they've graduated in our program, but they haven't necessarily left yet. And that's okay. The reason I say that is because we have kind of like different tiers when it comes to where different clients live. So for example, in our main building, the clients that reside there, they do need a little bit more physical help. They do need a little more behavioral. So that main building, just having multiple staff in one location to help support someone is huge. From that point, our residents that are in the community, some need help physically, some need help behaviorally, whatever it is, but there's a little bit more independence there, right? And then we have our apartments. We have apartments in Dublin. We have apartments in Bethlehem. And that's like the next tier of independence. There's still staffing, but it's not staffing. I want to make sure I word this correctly. Like, it's 24/7 staffing, but there's times when, like, the staff, let's say they go to the store to grab something, those individuals can be left alone. So it's that progression. So I've seen growth like that. I've seen graduating like that. I've seen oh, all right, I'm gonna try and not get emotional over this one because everybody's very special to me. It's just this, you'll understand what I mean as I say it. That's all I'm going to say for that one. We're in group one day, and we're trying to write, and I see her getting very frustrated because she was struggling writing. She's one of our individuals who is in our concussion program. I didn't even talk about the concussion program. We have to talk about it at some point. So anyway, she's trying to write. I see her struggling. I'm like, all right, let's take a step back here, take a deep breath, tell me what's going on. And she expressed how she used to write fluently. She used to do all these things, and it was heartbreaking for her that she wasn't able to. So I looked at her and I said, we're going to get through this. We're going to do it. You're going to get to a place where you are able to write again. It's just, today is one of those days. It's a rough day. You know what I mean? And long story short, time goes on. I was shown one of her papers, and her handwriting is so much strong. Like, it's clearer. It's this, and to see the smile on her face of like, I am doing this is, like, in this field, I never ask for a thank you. I never ask for this. I do things because, like I expressed it, I'm taking care of people because that's my passion. I've always wanted to work with people. The moments that I see that progression and that growth, that in itself for me is like, you just did that for you. That's the best feeling out there. Like, it's just, I don't think my cup will ever be full when it comes to seeing individuals, just whether it's walking, writing. We had a gentleman who, after he sustained his injury, struggled really bad with talking, between the mumbling and the stuttering. He's now reading for us when in groups. Like, he's doing those things because, again, those pathways finally caught up, and he's able to fluently speak now when he's in group. I think I should pause there and let you talk. I don't know, because I could just keep rolling with so many examples.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I think for our listeners to just remember that where you are now is not where you will be tomorrow or in 2 weeks, right? And continuing to not give up and put one foot in front of the other, metaphorically, but maybe also literally. And then also, yeah. And then also realize that we're going to have setbacks. The journey after brain injury, it's not a predictable path. It's not a linear path. It's not just going to take you up. And, it over time, even in my own journey, I've seen, like, over time, the progression has been up, but there's been times I've gone up and I've gone back down, and then I've had to climb that same mountain back again. And that can be discouraging. So what would you say to those who are experiencing setbacks?
So what I would say, and I'm not going to do the whole Irish blessing because that would just be very, very long, but there's one point where it says, rest if you must, but just don't quit. Recognizing, I think the one thing there's a lot of things I enjoy about you, Cristabelle, but the one thing I really enjoy is, like, when you talk with the individuals for Bible study, and not blatantly, that was totally the wrong word. You are transparent enough to turn around and say, I'm having a brain fog day today. Like, I'm having, like, recognizing in yourself that you're having that type of day is important. And sometimes after an injury, we lose that ability to feel, I guess, or see those days. Or sometimes some of us might be embarrassed that we're having those days. But at the end of the day, no one's perfect. I mean, there's only one perfect being, and he's located upstairs. So outside of that, like, you're you're allowed to have those days that you say, guess what? it's a rough day, and we have clients here that say that. And I look at those clients some days and I say, you're here, you're working
Yeah.
through that, just being here and even listening, doing one thing. I'm not going to say little thing because it could be big to somebody in whatever size, but doing one thing, even through that, that's huge. Recognizing in yourself that, okay, it's just not the day for this. That's okay. Because then you never know. You wake up tomorrow and you're doing boom, 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 right? It's that balance because some of us, like, I'm more into like a day and age technology. So I'm almost positive a lot of people can relate to this. Our wonderful cell phones, you have to charge them, right? And our goal is you want to get it to 100% because you want to use it as long as you can, right? Unfortunately, sometimes after an injury, no matter how long you have your phone plugged in, you only get to a 50% charge. So can you imagine, like, your goal is to start the day at 100% and yet you're automatically down to 50. And then sadly, as you deplete, it's going to take you twice as long to even get back to 50%. And that's something I wish people would realize is that, like, if you're tired, like, and make sure you rest, because if you don't rest, all you're going to do is just keep depleting yourself. You know what I mean? And that's where I wish sometimes individuals, again, not being kind to yourself, recognizing, and also share your feelings with others. It's important because the one individual, I know when she walks into the room, if she has a look on her face, we're going to do a stretching exercise before we even begin the group, because I'm seeing in her, she's already at a place mentally, and I need to help her get back to center because it's okay. The breathing exercises and taking a minute are huge, but my point is, when you share with others those things that you're feeling, those that, like, help you and support you, we can see those physical things that you may not see, have that discussion so she can like, oh, when I get this feeling in my chest, I need to take a step back. Oh, if I feel like, my breathing is faster than other times, I need to slow down my breath because this means something's triggering. It's those little things too that can help an individual, thrive. And also, it's trying to think how I want to learn this. It's again learning that new you. Maybe you didn't have anxiety before your TBI and now you have it. Maybe you didn't have depression before your TBI, you didn't have it. Maybe you're somebody that's, like, overly excited now after your injury and you have to learn how to balance. I mean, it ranges so far, but
Yeah.
that ability to be honest with yourself, but be honest with others. And the thing is, I feel like I keep saying the thing is, I apologize, but one of the things to remember is, like, there's no shame in the game. I think I just want to say it like that. There's no shame in having to take a break. There's no shame in having to say, I can't do this right now. And that's the thing. Make sure, like, when you're talking to yourself, tell yourself those little time frames. Because the thing about the brain is, like, self-talk is huge. We put ourselves down sometimes when we talk to ourselves, and we think that our brain can decipher that, like, we're joking or that we really don't mean it. And sadly, like, we can't. When we do inner talk and we, let's say, oh, you're so dumb, why did you do that, talking to yourself? My brain is literally going to hear those words and not separate the joking from it. And built on yourself, right? And, I had somebody say to me yesterday, well, Hattie, that's not true, because when somebody tells me a joke, I laugh. I was like, okay, I understand where you're coming from with that, right? Because you're thinking that your brain doesn't understand. It's different when it's self-talk. Like, if you were to tell me a joke right now, Cristabelle, I could laugh and I would enjoy it. But then if I turn around and start talking to my inner self, that emotion's out there. I hear the little literal words. So making sure you really support yourself too, that's huge. That's very, very
Yeah.
huge.
I love that. Thank you, Patty. And also admitting when you're having a hard day or when you need help. Sometimes we don't want to admit that to ourselves. It's not even admitting
Yeah.
it to somebody else that is the problem sometimes, I know, like, my family will be understanding if I'm like, hey, I'm having a rough day, I can't do that. But if I don't want to have a rough day today, like, I have a lot to
Right.
do, and I was like, I don't have the luxury of having a rough day today, but I am having a brain rough day.
Yep.
It's hard because if I don't admit that to myself, that that charging, like I love that metaphor of the phone charger. And after brain injury, yeah, you're depleted, your brain battery is depleted, but it's not the same every day. So like I could have one day where I'm like at 75%, then the next day I could be at 30. And it's like, I don't want to admit that I'm at 30 today because I've got a lot to do. But the only way to move forward and the only way to ultimately continue to heal and progress is to admit I'm only at 30 today and I have to put some things down and be able to recognize that for myself, right? But it's hard to admit to yourself. It is so hard to admit to yourself.
It is. Nobody, I mean, if we think about it, nobody really wants to admit if they're not at the top of their game. Nobody wants to admit to, even if it's a friend sometimes that you're feeling that way. And especially I feel like loved ones too. They've done so much. They continue to do so much that sometimes I know individuals they'll bring up, well, I feel like I'm a burden. No, you are never a burden. No. That's the whole point is to share and to talk about it. Again, I can go back to the whole, everybody's here for a reason. It's one of those things. It's an interesting journey, but along that way, like there are the highs, the lows, the plateaus, I don't even know how I got here type deals. But as long as you can say like, okay, I now need to use the GPS because I'm not sure where I'm at. That's okay. Like everybody gets lost at some point.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And sometimes we can't find the GPS, and so we just got to stop. Right? So it's like, I don't even know where to start and I don't know where the GPS is. So I'm just got to rest today, and then that's okay
Exactly.
too. Right? But we just can't give up, and realizing that rest does not equal giving up. I think that rest is a courageous way to move forward. When your brain has done too much, it's part of the journey. So, all right, I have two more questions for you because we're coming down towards the end of our time. And
Awesome.
I think we could talk about so much more. But the first thing I want to ask is, what have you learned about yourself working with people with brain injuries? If you don't mind sharing, you mentioned at the beginning, like not only have you like seen things in them, but like they've taught you things. And I would just love to hear that. And then our final question is, as always, what are your final words of hope? But first,
Oh, cool.
what have you learned? What have you learned about yourself through working with people with brain injuries for 12 years?
You ask good questions. You ask really good questions. What I've learned these 12 years is even even if every being in your body is telling you that you can't do something, as long as you can put forth even an ounce, not even an ounce of energy to work towards it, you can get towards that goal. You don't always have to look at something in such a big picture. You can break it down into smaller steps to achieve a goal because the more smaller steps that you conquer, the more confidence you gain to be, that strong individual. I've learned that I see now this is the emotion. I'm a very social person. That, right? And it's always blows everybody's mind when I try to express myself like outside of these walls. And it's the nervousness I get speaking in front of people. But yet if I'm in front of my crew, oh my gosh, I can stand up there and I can help and say everything. The I've also learned there's qualities about myself that like I may not like how we all have those, and yet the clients have taught me like those parts are kind of like the parts that people really do enjoy about you, like you know what I mean. So it's like really taking that step back and being like, even if I have these thoughts, like it's not always how like you think about it. It's another mentality. That also they taught me just like there's so much more to this life than like what we think. Like I feel like we have a tendency to look at the negative right away as opposed to looking at the positive of, okay, I can't do this, but I'm here doing this and I'm living and I'm thriving. I can't achieve this right now, but if I look back, I've done this and this. So being patient with yourself. They've also taught me that laughter is so amazing on so many levels. It can help in so many situations. It's you really only get one life, and what's thrown at you is you can have some very serious days, but when you can find the light and find the humor, like that's huge. They've taught me that, like I said before, I've always had a passion for helping people, but like this field is where I'm meant to be. You know what I mean? Like it's a very interesting field to be in. It could be very hard some days. It could be very rewarding some days. It could be very all of the above, but it's just that openness and that open-mindedness that even if you have an idea for this stuff that you think you're taking, and if you get thrown off and put on a different path, like it's okay. Like you're going to have people that support you. And another thing is like, I'm someone who I swear if I could help every person at one time, I'd love to. It's like it would just be magical and everybody would be happy. But like it takes a village. You really, that village is so huge because it not only helps you like be supported, but it teaches you different ways and to support others. I think those are my top ones I'm going to list right now because
There's probably you
I
can
have
keep
so
going.
much.
Yeah.
I really
Oh,
could.
well,
That's the
that
fun
was
part.
really great. Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing. Now, what are
You're
your
welcome.
final words of hope for our listeners?
Right. Final words of hope, guys. You got this. You can do this. Even when you feel like you can't, I know you've never actually met me or whatever it is, try to remember that voice because anyone who has sustained a TBI, maybe, has an ABI, however we want to word this in a sense, right? You got someone in Quakertown who's rooting for you. I got you. And then you have your actual other individuals that have just don't, don't let one, how do I want to word this in a sense? Don't let one moment of a day that is hard for you, don't let it determine the rest of your day. Put that thing aside for a minute and keep going. And, always remember you are important. You may feel as though you don't know what your purpose is. You don't know how you're benefiting people or so on and so forth. But I'm here to tell you, like, you're here for a reason. You survived. You are thriving. You are doing. And no matter if you just sustained your injury or maybe you're listening and you've had your injury for up to 10 years, it's keep going. Keep that fire alive. Because once you let that fire go inside, that's when it gets really hard. But each one of us is here for a purpose, and you are cared for by someone in this world. Like somebody somewhere they care about you. So just if you can't find that motivation for yourself in that day, think about a loved one, think about a friend, think about someone who truthfully is there for you, and maybe you do it for them that day, or maybe you do it for your higher power that day, whatever it might be. Keep on keeping on.
Oh, thank you so much, Patti. This has been so
Yeah.
wonderful. I've really loved this conversation. Thanks for coming on.
Me too.
And
Yes.
that's it.
All right.
Thanks for being
Sounds
here.
Oh, you're very welcome. I really, really loved it. It's so easy to talk to you. So I love the just back and forth with that alone too.
And if people want information about Success, I will put the website into the show notes.
Thank you for that. Yeah, the website has a lot of information for individuals and a lot of resources. So please, please, please take a look if you can.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Hope Survives podcast. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, and would love for you to consider leaving us a rating or a review. Check out hopeafterheadinjury.com for more. I'll see you next time. And remember, there's always hope.